All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Washington County Finance and Budget Committee. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I have asked our Honorable Judge Joseph Wood to do our prayer and pledge this evening. Judge Wood? Thank you, Judge Wood. The next item is adoption of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by J.P. Duncan, a second by J.P. Ussery. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Before we get into our budget review this evening, I want to make a couple comments about the budget process moving forward. This is our last special meeting. The next meeting we'll have, of course, is our regularly scheduled September meeting. So my plan for that is we will have the budget in ordinance form, essentially. All the new spending, whether it be capital and personnel, we have a summary of that once again on page 12. We'll try to get any updates that we have to that, to your budget books, and also any revisions of agenda. We will take those items up one at a time and amend that ordinance at that time for new spending, so that we can each consider those separately and get those voted on. The plan there is to hopefully then have that moved to the full quorum court for the September meeting so we can start consideration of that in the full body and have plenty of time to do that. So that's my plan as chair, and we'll see how we can herd the cats to get to that goal. And with that, we'll just move right on into tonight. We have the county judge's budget review, and we'll just let them take it and guide us. And if anybody has any questions, please stop them or get my attention, and we'll try to get everything answered. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, again, Chairman Deakins and Finance and Budget Committee, again, thank you for the work that you guys have done in getting us to this point. I think Sheriff made a comment probably 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when his meeting was, but this is the last of the first, or the first of the last of many. My last budget, number 6 right here. And so again, it was kind of heartening as I'm walking through these budgets and working with our directors. We got about 15 to 16 of them, and we've got some good folks in the county, 600 plus employees who go in every day to serve our citizens. And so got a lot of good things going on in the county, obviously, thanks to you guys and the work that you guys have been doing. We have a communication systems now that we're starting to work through and work on. We have our reopening of our crisis stabilization unit. We have improvements in our roads and bridges. And in fact, our roads and bridge program is now being looked at by cities in the state that they want to use some of the technology that we've been using. And so I can go down and look at past 6 years and look where we are. 6 years we probably have come in with under budget and or flat. This year will be some increase, and given everyone who's talked to you, they can talk about the reasons why, and so we'll hit some of those. 6 months ago, I guess it would be April, May, J.P. Deakins came out and visited with us about what was going on in with the budget and what the budget committee wanted to do, the process. And so I went ahead and visited with our chief of staff and our 15, 16 department heads to talk about, all right, this you know the drill, if you will, and they continue to just do yeoman's work. And so with that, let's kind of walk through it. start with the animal shelter. I think you guys have it in alphabetical order, the judge's budget. So again, the Washington County Animal Shelter is led by our own director, Angela Ledgerwood. She's been with the county a number of years and has a phenomenal team over there. They continue to cut daily stays of animals in our shelter by partnering with other agencies and shipping animals to other states to have a shorter reproduction cycle. And you're like, reproduction? It's like, yeah, in colder states, they don't produce as much as they do in warmer states. And so we get a lot of animals, and so we can get a chance to send those animals to places that they're looking for and don't have the supply. Anyway, we have had some reduction in cost of the daily operation by using 309s with the Sheriff's Department. However, due to the pandemic, we have not had the 309s, and so there's been some increase in our labor coverage. And so the budget, in short, is going to be up 4.2%. In my mind, that's relatively flat. It's about $33,000 that'll be up. And that, again, is going to be largely due to the temporary help in our labor coverage as well as in our utilities. And I'll stop at each one of the departments if there's any questions.
I have one first, just so you can keep me straight. So we don't get any 309 support at all anymore?
No,
I mean, that hasn't picked back up since the pandemic?
No.
Okay.
All right. All right, the next department is our archives department. Again, this department is located in the Old County Courthouse. It's managed by Ms. Myra over here, and we appreciate her and the work that she's done. And Ms. Myra has spent many years around the county, so she's got a good familiarity of what goes on there. And she had a good teacher who set some things up with Ms. Patty Burnett. And prior to that was Tony Wapple. But again, we're looking at coming in flat, no changes in the budget. So again, in short, that budget will remain the same, no change, $3,000 for that particular budget. All right. Building and Grounds, Department 108. Again, that is headed by Dwight Gonzalez. He leads our Building and Grounds team with a very small and limited team. His team has worked to be obviously top professionals. They've secured some of the credentials that makes them one of the only folks who get those type of certifications in the state of Arkansas, one of the few in the country, facility maintenance. And so they really have some credentials that has never been held, and that's kudos to them. One of the things we did when we came into the county was to really try to put an emphasis on upgrading and making sure that people are getting the skill sets that they need, or bringing those skill sets into the county to raise a better service to the citizens that we're providing. We have about 40 plus buildings that he's responsible for, and all the grounds that come along with that. And with dedicated master plumbers and dedicated electricians, you don't have a whole lot left to make sure that you have those guys there. And so a lot of that dollars have been spent on temporary services coming in to help us do some of the night cleaning. With the pandemic coming in, that's a protocol that we had to make sure that those places were being top to bottom cleaned and taken care of. So his request is about a $354,000 increase over last year, about a 15% increase. Again, you got fuel that'll be a part of that, as well as, again, some of the other pieces that we're talking about as far as the support staff and the part-timers that come in, or the temporary services that help us do the cleaning for our buildings, about a 15.5% increase over last year. There will be a request in the personnel for 2 additional employees and personnel when salaries and personnel are considered. Additionally, there'll be some capital outlay requests for elevators, as well as HVAC systems in the old historic courthouse, and that would run pretty significant. We have, again, considerably some older buildings. We've been talking about roofs across the county, and now we've got a couple of elevators in this building. We addressed some of the elevators in the annex, which is a newer building, and we got the elevator down over here. To do the modernization, it would run about $400,000 or $500,000. To do brand new will be closer to $800,000 for new elevators. So anyway, those asks will be coming in your capital outlay and or a separate ordinance if we go ahead and address those this year, as opposed to waiting.
JP Esri.
Thank you very much. I have several questions. One of them is that on the training and education, that $10,000 were spent in '21, and yet he's only asking for $7,000. I know how important training is, and my question is that enough? Which is a strange question.
No, it is, because they've gotten some of the highest credentials, and they don't have as many people, so they won't have to go back and do some of that same particular training. That last year was to get them to where they are now. So you got fewer people that would need that same type of training now.
Okay, and then my second question is, what's our return on investment on the new AC unit for the old courthouse? Because I know that's consuming a lot of dollars in maintenance and everything else, and I would assume there would be a relatively short payback on a new system that we don't have to fill with refrigerant all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brian, you can go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, so if you look at the request, I'll find it real quick on what that amount is. So the total that we've got right now for a new system, and understand with that building, to do this right, there's a lot that'll be involved, which will be taking out a lot of walls, a lot of ceilings, and then putting those back. As it's historic, you have to do it a certain way, but that $1.6 million is for that AC unit. Right now, we spend over $100,000 a year on service alone. We have there's one or two guys that are with Multicraft that are actually certified to fix that unit. It's some sort of special unit that was put in, and so there's not many people that service them, but we happen to have some here, and they spend most of their time at the historic courthouse working on that unit. There are two units within the overall unit that are completely dead and cannot be revived, and so we're not even at 100% on that. The building is not even operating at 100% its HVAC potential, and so some of the building, there's a portion of it that is being kind of helped out by, 50, 60% of the unit. We know that this is something that we can limp along, and we've been doing. The county's been doing that for a long time. But we also know that as time increases, if we wait till next year to 2024's budget, the cost is going to go up and our service cost is going to go up. But it's just one of those things that we know needs to be done for the heating and cooling, and they have constant problems down there.
Right, and I understand that, I guess, but my question is that I did not see in here what the approximate savings per year was going to be, as far as, I know it's going to cost more, but I guess what I'm looking at is, while that's a high cost, if we don't do it, this is what it's going to cost, and you just answered that question. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then my last question, as we've gone through all of these, how are we measuring Johnson Controls as far as, I know everybody's utilities are going up, and they're going up substantially, and I'm just wondering how that savings works, how it's documented, and if you could kind of help us out with that.
So they provide us a performance report. I don't know if it's monthly or quarterly, but they provide a performance report to the county to show those. And so, some of our buildings that are on our solar panel project, those bills don't change. I mean, those bills, it's kind of like if you were to add solar to your house. What they do is they average your bill, and then, your bill stays flat year-round instead of your heat going up in the winter and down in the summer, and your cooling going up in the summer and down in the winter. And so we're in that same thing. That's part of that performance contract where they had to guarantee us a savings to pay that bond back. Not all of our buildings are on that, and that's where we're taking a big hit. And we have, just to let you know, our utilities, the biggest utility cost, I think the biggest increase we're seeing is in gas. For example, buildings and grounds, right now, they budgeted $30,000 this year for natural gas. They've spent $39,752 as of today. Everybody that uses natural gas, from the animal shelter to JDC to the buildings, all the other buildings that are on it, are seeing a really big increase in that cost of gas. And so that's where a lot of these utilities are coming up, because not every building, especially like with the electricity, we're up overall 23,000 countywide. Not every building is on that building. Like this courthouse is not on that building. So I would imagine that our electric bill would be quite a bit larger if we did not have the solar panels and the project that we have. But, you know, with everything not being on it, that's why we're seeing some of these increases. You're welcome.
JP Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about the insurance, fire and extended coverage.
Right.
We're going from 114,000 to 300,000. So have we actually been billed and it's reflecting this number? Have we tried to rebid insurance, or what's our status on insurance?
We looked and tried to rebid last year, as a matter of fact. We're in a bit of a predicament right now. Our insurance has gone up mainly, they say, because of our claims for our roofs on the hail damage that was done. And you're right, it's 186,000 more this year that's being requested because our bill has gone up, because our insurance has gone up that much. We're on a system that runs the state's fiscal year. If, you know, I don't know if y'all know this, but the state's fiscal year runs July 1st to June 30th. Our fiscal year, January 1st, December 31st. To try to get that back fixed would cost us an additional $500,000 to get a 6-month stopgap to get on another program. The biggest problem we're having is finding a insurance to cover us. Because of this claim, we've not gotten any insurance. This is the cheapest that we've been able to find that we've put out. And so we're kind of stuck where we are on it.
So no new bidders, and
Nope.
we're just kind of stuck with who
That's
we
right.
had.
That's right. I think we put out a bid, and our current insurance company provider was the only one that submitted a bid.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions along that same vein. If we know, I think by this, first of all, what's the timeline, do you think, on settling the roof claim? Are we close to that, or what is your outlook for on that?
We have submitted, our reps gave us the information. We've submitted that back to the insurance company to dispute what they claim. I mean, it's basically, they were saying, here's $3 million, that's what we think the damages are. We sent it back, and, you know, based on our own professionals looking at it, and it's $6 million, over $6 million. We will be calling them again tomorrow, because I checked in with them 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and they said, hey, 2 more weeks, we should have it. So tomorrow I will call them to say, okay, where is it? What are we doing? Where are we on this? Then it gets to the point of, you know, did they change any? Is it enough to compensate us for what we need and worth it? Or is it something that we have to go to arbitration? Because that's our other option, is to say, well, they're sticking here, and we say we need more than this because it's not going to fix all of them. Our only option then would be to move to arbitration.
I guess that brings up, you're going down the same vein of my thought, is we expect probably some sort of outlay from the county to fix those roofs, to have to supplement the insurance claim, right? I mean, that would only make sense.
Well, we've already done that. Oh, you mean to supplement?
Well, once we get this insurance claim settled and we go to replace these roofs, I'm sure the county's going to have to kick in on that project, right?
Most likely, unless the insurance company comes back and pays the full amount that we've asked for. And then, you know, like anything, we have some that are a higher priority than others.
Yeah.
And so we'll start with those high priorities and move on from there.
So I guess assuming that settles and stuff, when we start looking at that project, I then wonder, you know, we have restrooms in the courthouse, we have elevators in the courthouse, we have this HVAC in the historical courthouse. If we have to eat that elephant one bite at a time, and we include the roofs in that, does that change? What's the prioritization, I guess, is what I would ask. Does that change this equation? If we have to do some of these next year and some the year after that, what would your prioritization be?
I don't think so, because I think that we would, you know, there are some roofs that have some damage, but it's pretty minor, that we could probably not necessarily have to go in and completely redo and fix, or fix it all. It might be something that's so minor that we can patch it, and it works, and so we don't have to worry about spending money. You know, some of our roofs, the claim was only $15,000, $20,000, and that may be something we don't even have to spend. So we would certainly look at our high priority roofs, like the one at the annex that's got to be completely replaced. But I think that with the money that we're going to get from the insurance, we'll be able to take care of those high priority roofs without having to dip back into the general fund to supplement that. If we were to go in and maybe replace every roof or redo every roof like that was suggested, then yes, if the insurance company doesn't pay you know, the full amount, then sure, we'd have to supplement that. But that's a decision that the administration will have to make at the time to see, you know, is this something we've got to jump on right now, or is it something that can wait, or something we can do some minor stuff to? And I'm glad you brought up the elevators and the bathrooms. We're going to hold off on the bathrooms because that's really not a high priority. You know, there are some tiles in some bathrooms that need to be replaced, but we understand that our priorities, we have much higher priorities, such as the roof, as well as the elevators. The elevators, we're probably going to pull that from. It'll be a moot point for the budget next year because we may be bringing this to you sooner. Because as the judge said, we've got an elevator that's down. We're waiting on a part. These elevators are 40 years old, never been replaced or anything, and so we're at a crucial point. Our hope was to wait until next year, and things would work, and then a week and a half ago, they both went down, which was bad. And so we got one back up and running, but one we're waiting on a part, and so I don't know that we're going to be able to wait much longer. I think we need to go ahead and start that, because that'll have to be done one at a time. So we'll be limping along with one elevator until we get one replaced or repaired completely, to move on to the next, because we've got to have at least one elevator. As far as, you know, the courthouse HVAC system is, again, that's at the pleasure of the quorum court on whether we do that now or we wait and leave that up. One of the other things that Buildings and Grounds has
Can I stop you there on the historical courthouse one? Remind me, we went through a major renovation in that building several years ago, right?
Right.
What happened with the HVAC? Did we put the wrong one in there, or what do you think there when you see it now? Because you're saying this one seems to be very specialized, the one that's there now.
My understanding, or our understanding from it was before, you know, that was back.
Right. I'm just saying, did we?
We put there was the air conditioning unit that was put in. Had it been put in properly, would have been great. Most people don't have any problems with them. It's one of the best things. It's a high-end air conditioning unit. This one, from what we've seen by having it repaired, is it was never installed properly. And so because of that, we've had problem after problem. To do it properly, we've got to take the wall, we got to remove wall, we got to take walls apart, we got to take the ceilings apart, we've got to really get in, like it's you know, to the bare bones of the building to go back in and to do this properly. And so that's what we're looking at is
A complete replacement.
a complete replacement of something that is done properly, that then we won't have any maintenance.
And then this new system, the hope is from then on forward, it's the right system, and it's just requires regular maintenance like
That's
any
correct.
of our other systems.
That's correct. I think some corners were cut to save some money. And in the, you know, initially it wasn't an issue, but as time has gone on, it's become more and more of an issue that probably wasn't foreseen when they put that,
Right.
when they put that system in.
Okay, good.
As far as one of the other asks, a $30,000 request that I know you'll consider later, is for the security station. This is for down on the first floor where the employee entrance is. Security has moved their monitors that used to sit right up here. They want to completely move their monitoring of the cameras down there, and it'll be a build out so that people can't see in. Their concern is somebody can come stand up here at the station and kind of see where those cameras are pointed, and it becomes a dangerous situation, a problem should somebody want to do harm. They now know where blind spots are in the courthouse and where they're not. And so this is something that security has really, really requested of all the needs to make this building a little bit safer. That's their number one highest priority, is to build that out, to give them that room down on the first floor.
You know what that is,
Yeah.
off of 115. Yeah.
Right.
With, you know, let's assume that the new, you know, you're asking for 2 new janitorial positions, you're asking for 2 new maintenance positions, correct?
Correct.
Assuming those can go through and get the approval of the court, you still expect the increase in the professional services line items?
And so we talked today about that. Right now, we have 16 buildings that our Buildings and Ground, our janitorial crew cleans. They clean at night. We've got 7 janitors, personnel that do that, and then we use some temps. If we were to get 2 janitorial positions, we could cut $50,000 out of our professional services line item. It'd jump back down to $300,000, which would be even with what we had last year, because we wouldn't need those temps. In addition to the 2 maintenance workers, currently what we have a master electrician. We have 2 HVAC technicians. One will retire in April of next year. He's been with the county for a long time. He's got an apprentice that's working for him that's gone to school and has been certified, that's learning our systems. And then we have 2 just maintenance techs. Those 2 maintenance techs are responsible, you know, the HVAC and the electrician, they have pretty special jobs and are very, you know, kind of a niche what they do and what they work on. Everything else that falls under general often falls under our last 2 guys. Since January of this year, we have had 362 work orders put in for maintenance repair, and that doesn't include just incidental repairs that are or things that are addressed that they're in the courthouse, somebody says, hey, I've got an issue, can you take care of that may not have a work order. We have about have about 110 work orders that are related to moving furniture. We move a lot of furniture. We have 2 guys. They're both older. They're not young and spry, but they're the 2 guys that go and move furniture a lot. I didn't realize how much it was until recently because I was concerned about how much time we were spending moving furniture, and I asked to be notified of moving of furnitures. And I think in 2 days I saw 6 requests come in for moving furniture. And so, you know, we don't have a huge staff. I know you see the buildings, they're well taken care of. Our 2 maintenance guys also perform our mowing and a lot of the other outdoor stuff. And so there's definitely a need for what we do. I mean, our guys stay pretty busy constantly. And so that's kind of some of the reason we're asking for a couple of more maintenance techs, just general maintenance techs. And then if we were to get those additional maintenance techs, that's where the vehicle request comes in for another just a regular 1,500 truck, half-ton truck, or quarter-ton truck, just a regular pickup that would allow them to, because our 2 current ones have a truck together, and then if we got 1 or 2 more, they'd have a truck together as well.
Gotcha. And the final question I have is with regard to these raises for the 3 buildings and grounds employees based on a new certification.
So those are the group, the IFMA group that does this, which is the International Facilities Management. There's a board. I mean, you're a national board certified. And so these increases in salary are what they recommend or what they see out on average nationwide. And so that's been the request. People that get these certifications are out on average see this much of a raise because of their certification. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to lower our footprint. It allows us to utilize and like any training. I mean, you come in and you learn new ways to take care of problems so that you don't continually work on them. You're not just putting a patch on something. And it gives us the ability with these certifications to learn how to do some of those things.
That's my questions.
All right.
Okay.
We'll go on to 0113, which would be our comptroller's office. That is now being chaired and run by our interim comptroller, Ms. Jennifer Hinkle. After retirement of Shannon Worthen, the department reviewed its needs for 2023, and overall looks like an increase of 4.4% or about $17,000. Again, specifically that was driven by audit increase. We are audited annually by the state as well as the feds, and so there's an increase in the audit as well as regular training and postage and software maintenance agreements. Bottom line is about a 4.4, which again, I would say about relatively flat for that department.
Good. You good?
All right.
I think we're good.
We'll go ahead to the 0122, which would be the county attorney. Again, Brian is our county attorney, reviewing the department needs for this upcoming 2023 year. Again, I think we bringing in about $56 reduced over last year's budget. So we reduced that budget for the county attorneys by $56, which again is pretty huge when we think about the amount of work that goes through that office. All right. County judge, 0600, no, county, where are we? Yeah, county judge. We are $222 over last year. Again, a flat budget. Again, we had some decrease in workers' comp, increase in longevity, kind of netted it out to about $222. But again, our supplies and other personal services, other service charges all stayed flat. So we get, again, another flat budget.
You guys doing your part.
Working hard. County library, oh, I'm sorry.
No, county library's not ready.
Oh, that's correct, that's correct. I think we sent a note to the chair, and I think you guys who've been on the court know that the county library has a board that approves their budget and then submits to us for acceptance and adoption. They will be meeting September 15th, which I think is after, I can't remember when quorum court is.
After the quorum court.
It's after
meeting.
quorum court. So, but again, it'll be one of those things that is, that will come in after that, after the quorum court meeting. But again, they normally tend to run flat. Next, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee didn't have that budget last year. We're asking about $5,000 in addition to where we are. That's Director Drew Smith, who was hired into that role and leads that particular group, the committee rather. And again, $5,000 is to allow her to do some training and traveling to pick up some best practices and bring some of that into the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. Bottom line, it's a new budget and about $5,000 more than what we brought her in for. Criminal Justice, we go into the DEM, Department of Emergency Management, 0500.
I'll just note that there was a revised budget sheet emailed out on this one the other day. I think you should have gotten it in your packets. It should be revised as of August 25th.
Yeah, that I was coming in flat until the revised came, and there's some state mandatory pieces that we have with our leasing of towers, and so that budget did go up $133,000 because of the mandatory towers that we need in the county, which is going to help us with our communication system. We can either lease it for $126,000 annually, or we can purchase it for $3 million per tower, and we need about 7 of them. So judiciously, it makes sense to go with the leasing, and that way they are responsible for the maintenance and upkeeping up technology upgrades, what have you. We go ahead and spend $21 million for 7 towers. At the end of so many years, obviously, that's all us, and then we would have to go back through that process again. So anyway, the overall increase for the Department of Emergency Management is $132,000. Again, that is largely $126,000 in the lease tower, and then the remaining $5,000 or $6,000 is in fuel, as well as some parts and repairs, some insurance.
And let me add on the tower, that 126,000,
It's multiple towers, right?
yeah, it's multiple towers. It's for our new AWIN system to be put on the towers. Most of them we already have and we're using, but because we're no longer using a Smith two-ways proprietary radio system, we're now going to be paying leases on these towers, which are the equivalent to what everybody else pays. I mean, we're paying the same amount as the city of Fayetteville or the city of Springdale or anybody that uses those towers. In addition to that, we are still working on a plan to charge a user fee, and the volunteer fire departments have been agreeable to that and amenable to that. We haven't worked all of that out yet, so we hope to recoup a lot of this money, this $126,000 back from those departments as part of them coming on and getting their radios and everything taken care of. That would be something that they would pay. So we haven't worked that out. We still have to fund it. We still have to do it. I mean, it's for not just, you know, us. I mean, it's the sheriff's office, it's central EMS, it's our fire departments, it's everybody. So it's just kind of one of those costs that we're going to have to take on and then work how we recover some of that money or recoup some of that money as time goes on, and we are still working on that.
The new support coordinator position, I mean, I see the justification letter. Do you have anything to expound upon that need? What
Sure.
the ask is there?
Up until recently, we had 4 people working in our DEM office, and now we're down to 3. One of our DEM guys, our 911 director, actually moved over to GIS with our IT department, and so they're staffed at 3 members at this point. I think doing so and going down from 4 to 3 has really shown them, it's quite a strain on them from time to time. I'll say this about DEM. You don't see them a lot, which is good, because you don't want to see them a lot. People start seeing, Department of Emergency Management everywhere, then things are bad. But they provide a crucial and critical support to all of our law enforcement, fire, and emergency services. They are responsible. Our DEM coordinates all of the events for the Razorbacks, for the city, for Northwest Arkansas. They, constantly are at those events. They're on call 24/7. I mean, they never know when something's going to happen, and they're going to get a call. The fair, for example, is something that hadn't previously been one of the events that they've really worked, but I think given what happened, there will be some changes made next year, and we will have our Department of Emergency Management, our mobile command unit will be there to house additional officers, additional eyes and ears at events such as that. And so with them going down, they just really are in need of adding a 4th person. The 911 position will no longer be available because we've moved the 911. One, we're not getting 911 funds. And 2, we've moved that person into the GIS, and some of that will be handled by our planning department as well to kind of alleviate and take on those roles. And so the 911 director that they had, while he did 911, he had 911 functions, he also helped with other things around. We have a lot of inventory. We grant grants. They have grants that are renewing and inventory coming constantly. I've got to have people. We have the new air packs that were ordered that we have to go in. We have to sort through, write down all the serial numbers, make sure we capture all the information on those before they go out to the departments, because technically all the things that are bought with our grants that we then give out to or loan out to other departments, they still reside with us. We're responsible for upkeep on or the information, keeping up with that. We've got our USAR team that is a separate group that goes out. There's training that's involved with that. And so there's a lot that goes on kind of behind the scenes with DEM that most people probably, I honestly, when I first came to the county, had no idea. And I've been able to see, I know that they constantly are meeting with law enforcement. They're constantly meeting with the feds, the state, local, and working on plans for contingency plans for pretty much everything we have going on. They coordinate trainings. There's a lot that goes on, a whole lot that our local first responders depend on the county DEM for.
And for a small example, at least 4 years, I've been looking at the county and saying we need to get a few drills done, active shooter, fire, and we really just have not been able to get that off because, again, they're short. And when you got almost 12 years of no growth in that department, but yet the needs and the growth of this county continues to put pressure on them. Last night I was calling them because Springdale, tiny town, got hit with the tornado burst or whatever and knocked out all their power and all. Again, I need some insight into what's going on. What do we need? Is there anything that we can do in the county? And so that's who I go to, and that's who, because again, we're responsible for public safety. Even though they're inside the city would have been able to reach out and visit with us if they needed our county crews to go and help maybe move some things like when we got hit earlier this year with the tornadoes in Springdale to help do some cleanup and move debris, et cetera. So there is the need to have some additional support in that department would be my recommendation.
Let me ask you this: when you look at the positions detail, I'm on page 132. This 911 deputy director, is that the one that you're saying that will no longer be there? That we've moved over to planning?
IT, yes.
Or IT. I'm sorry,
Right.
IT. So I mean, when I'm looking at it, that position is still in the budget, correct? I mean, you could eliminate that position, add this new position, and you guys are actually saving money. I'm just wondering about presentation-wise. It's a little bit more palatable when you do it that way.
I think, so those are, based on the letter that went out, we instructed talked to our department heads about not touching at all their personal services. So that was something that we told them, don't mess with personal services, the 1,000 line items, because that's all stuff that'll be taken up separately. So we didn't go in and make any changes. That's why it's there, because it was just copied over from the previous year, which is how the comptroller makes these books. And so that's why it's there. It's not there as a request. If you look over at the 911 budget, you can see that there is no requests, no salaries
133.
over there, correct. So yeah, that will go away, and we would just have potentially this new employee that would be there.
You see that on page 133?
Thank you.
Any other ones on that one? All right, the Department of 911 that we just got through talking about again, that one is coming in at about 3.7% lower than last year's budget. Again, for some of the things we just got through talking about, there's a decrease in their total other services and charges. Maintenance contracts have been reviewed, and then obviously some of the salary piece will eventually go out of that as well. So overall, that budget is then again down. Move on to fire departments. They're up about 40,000, about 3.5% increase over last year. Again, relatively flat.
Just a second, environmental
Are you
affairs,
missing
I
that one?
believe.
That would be on page 134.
All right, thank you. We're moving too fast on our end, thank you.
Let's see, we're number 702, environmental. 702, environmental. Andrew Coleman is our director. Well, he's our manager over there. Would like to see him become a director with the salary changes when that gets in. But right now, he manages that with another. It's only two in that department, and so they're responsible again for the entire county, handling dump sites, waste dump sites. We spend a lot of time working, obviously, with Boston Mountain. There is an increase in this particular budget of about 12,000 over last year. Again, specifically, that's going to be again in fuel, parts and repairs, and the insurance because of the truck that you guys approved last year for that group. And so, and again, that truck is a lifesaver because again, the trucks that they were using to reach over into some of that area, and again, these are not young people to get into some of those waters and culverts to pull some of that trash. This truck really helps to kind of navigate and get through some of that. So, but anyway, the insurance on that is up as well. So again, fuel, parts, and insurance is why that's about 12,000 over last year. Overall, about a 5.5% increase over last year's budget. No questions. We'll move on to 0120, which is grants. Director Sharon Lloyd is our grant administrator for the county. The grants department is again coming in with a flat budget of about $470 over last year, $470. So again, and they have run that way since we've been in office. Grants has been, as of today, they're running about 20 grants for a total of about $7.1 million received. Pending is still about another 600,000, so about almost a little more than $7.5 million in grants will be coming in. Bottom line, this is another flat budget, about $400 over last year. (0121) HR, Human Resources. Patty Burchett is our Director of Human Resources there. Glad to have her join the team. She brings some tremendous knowledge and expertise as a HR professional. to the county, and so, and she's bringing that and delivering that to her team. For the 2023 proposed budget, there's a reduction of about $26,000, and so again, another reduction in flat budget from out of HR.
I will say there's a couple of things, requests I know that you'll take up later, but one of those is funding to build a training room on the 5th floor. We have if you've ever been up on the 5th floor where the HR department is and grants, Quorum Court Secretary sits up there as well. It's a very open space. It's one of the few open spaces that we have. They currently have a very small room that they can do about 2-person trainings at a time. For our new employees do their onboarding. What we'd like to do is take this open area and put some glass up to make a conference room out of it that'll allow them to do about 10 trainings at a time for our onboarding for our new employees. And so all of our employees have to go through mandatory training and go over all of our policies, make sure they understand our policies, talk about benefits, all the things that you do when you start a new job. And so there is a request that they've asked for about $30,000 as well for that up on the 5th floor. And then you've got some information here on the HRIS software. We've looked at that. Our ARPA administrator and HR have looked at that, and that appears to be something that we could fund out of ARPA funding. And so we won't be asking for that out of the general fund. We've made some changes in the vendor that we're looking at utilizing based on best fit with IT. And what this software is it's a fully interactive software for all of our employees in the county. Currently, all county employees don't have a place to go to look up check stubs, to look up W-2s. There's a lot of things that we don't have. We don't have the capability of providing to them, and this software would allow that. It also allows us to do training, keep up with our own policies, state policy, federal policies, help with all that. And I know that's not really something we're talking about right now, but since it's here, I want to go ahead and address it in case there were any questions about it on what that was.
Well, I applaud the training room addition. I know that when we implemented the essentially the step plan for the road department, I was talking with Superintendent Crowder, and there was actually some headaches there about onboarding, a problem that we hadn't really run into, but as we were getting back some of those employees, it'd be good to have more capacity there, I believe. Yeah. JP Usry?
Thank you. When will we be discussing this? Because I have a big question on $250,000 to bring the people in that do the voting each year.
You mean the HRIS software? So I think, and Ms. Burchett's here, they had a meeting today with the vendor that we're considering, and these are vendors that are on state bid contracts. They had a meeting today, so they don't quite have it ready to bring, but it is something that we could possibly have to the next finance and budget meeting, or if not for September, then possibly in October for county services or personnel, and then finance to look at something like that.
Just based on the depth of this, I'd assume there'd be some kind of presentation that goes with this.
Oh, yes. We'd have a presentation to kind of better show you, all of you, the Quorum Court and the public, what it is this is going to look like.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other on human resources? All right, we'll go to, I think, 0115, which is our information technology team. That's, again, led by Director Sidney Reynolds. He and his team, again, about 8 people. I'm always stunned when I say that because in the category in which we won, again, for the, fifth year in a row, we've been in the top 10 in the country for our technology advancements in the county, with counties under 299,000 and under, and we're 249,999 and under. We always in that top 10, but the one who always beats us out has about $1 billion budget, and they have about almost 60 employees. So I'm just 250 employees. So, and that's that, and they're always kind of ranked number 2 and number 1. Anyway, they do a good job. They are reactive, responsive rather, when things do go awry, but very on top of it. We just talked about it last month about the attempted hack into our servers, and those guys jumped right in it. Anyway, again, they're coming in with another flat budget, about $7,000 over last year. Again, can't say enough about the work that they do. Again, getting their training and helping those around the county, those other elected officials as well as employees to stay connected and better serve the people in this county.
They have an ask, you'll see in here as well, for about $30,000. That is for a new battery backup system for our servers. We have to have something that when the power goes out here that catches our servers to give us time to shut those down. Otherwise, we could lose all the information, a lot of the information that we have that we've already put on a backup. And so the battery system that we have right now is at its end of life. It cannot be repaired any further than what we have. And so we're to the point that we've got to purchase a new battery backup system to keep our servers going downstairs.
Nothing on IT. We'll move on to our Juvenile Detention Center, 0444, page 182. Again, Director Chris Tinsley leads our Juvenile Detention Center team. He was there. He was recruited by Judge Zimmerman. And then with the retirement of Denise Collins, I was able to go and re-recruit him from Judge Zimmerman and bring him back, and he leads our JDC team, and what a, again, tremendous job that they're doing over there. Again, turning in another roughly a flat budget of about a $7,000 increase over last year. Again, that's, decrease in total total supplies and other services to kind of offset some of the premium pay that went into their personnel. And so those two kind of offset and got it to that $7,000 over last year. All right, we'll move on to 0110 planning. Dr. Otta, Sam Otta is our director over there in planning, and has jumped in and leading that. He was the interim planning director, now he's the planning director. They show an overall increase of a 6.2% increase in their budget. Total supplies, again, are up, fuel and tires, computer equipment. Other services, an increase in those dues and membership also kind of ran higher, and that's what drove the 6.2% increase over last year's budget for about almost $20,000.
Additionally, you'll notice on his note, they have a request for the consideration of a couple of new vehicles. I think as you can see from his note, of the 3 vehicles that our planning department has, one is a 2007 and one is a 2000 model Dodge Durango. And so they're needing to upgrade those vehicles, and so that's their request to be considered by the Quorum Court for some additional funding on that. They have to go out. They do site visits for all of our projects. They go out. They look at the site. They take pictures in order to prepare the planning board and for the Quorum Court. Should it come, they're the one that have to put all that together, which is why they have vehicles and have a need for vehicles.
All right, with that we'll move to purchasing, which is 0118 page. I can think that is 199. And the purchasing department is being led by Director Addie Vela. I think she's here, but newlywed, and so we congratulate her. Again, she's leading the purchasing department for all of Washington County. The department increased their budget by about $10,000 over last year. Again, namely sundry insurance. Again, those one-off items, those things that can't be put into somebody else's bucket has gone up. There will be some capital requests for some software, but again, largely it's the increase in their budget is the software and software maintenance as well as insurance. About a 5.2% increase over last year, about $10,000.
Right, and they're also working on getting, wanting to get some training. Although Addie's been with our purchasing department for a few years now, we have another individual, Jessica, who's relatively new. And so we're working on getting them the training they need to better suit the county for what they do. And their ask was for some software that does electronic purchasing. It would just make our purchasing process more efficient, allow us to track things better to make sure that we're maintaining our state law compliances and federal law compliances as they relate to some of our federal grants.
J.P. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a question. Does the purchasing department purchase all of the vehicles for the county?
No, they don't do the actual, necessarily do the purchasing. They are responsible for doing all of the bids for everything. So before a purchase can be made, the purchase is the easy part. The bids are the more in-depth part that takes a lot more time and requires a lot more resources. And so they do the entire process in order to follow state law. They're responsible for initiating and keeping up and performing that process to accept bids. Then they sit down with whatever department has requested or is asking for whatever it is we're buying. They'll sit down, they'll go through it with them to make sure that the bids are compliant, that they meet what we've requested in order to determine responsible versus non-responsive bidders. And then it's up to the department to then make the purchases based on that. But typically you have one bidder that, bid is outright better than the other, so it's not really a hard sell. But ultimately it's the elected official that makes that decision.
Figure out how we have county employees driving 22-year-old vehicles with all the vehicles we fund here.
Well, a lot of that comes down to you've got departments that either maybe have a history in the past of not being given new vehicles when they ask, and so they stop asking. And it's just they've just learned to make do with that. Or you have a department that, I will say that for the most part, not for the most part, for the entire part, our county employees try to be as resourceful as possible. I mean, we really do try to utilize what we have until it just won't go anymore. I mean, that's kind of our philosophy. And so if we can get a vehicle and get 20 years out of it, then we'll get 20 years out of it. And so, these aren't necessarily vehicles that are, unlike the sheriff's vehicles, those are emergency responders. They've got to know that it's reliable and they can get somewhere. Some of these others, if we have a truck down in our planning department because, there's a part out, then they can make do without having that, up and running. It's not critical. And so that's kind of where we get there, and we really do try to limit when we come ask for vehicles. We don't have like a fleet plan that we say we're going to upgrade ever so often regardless. We just kind of get to the point where we know we've got something that's not going to make it much longer, and then the ask comes and says, hey, we haven't asked for anything in 20 years, and so here we are.
I'm tight, but I'm not that tight, no. We have, and they have pinched a long time holding on to some of these vehicles. Our road department has some 300,000-mile vehicles when we came in, and they continue to, again, as long, because they're mechanics, they can kind of piecemeal it, and especially if it's just running around the yard. But again, at some point, they do come to the end of life, if you will. And so that's what that request is. All right, we'll move to roads. Is that right? No, yeah. Roads, 0200. Road department is the largest department, obviously, that I have as a county judge. It's about 90 people, about 1,100 miles of accepted county roads, and grades about 400 miles of residential roads. The semi-annual basis operates about on a 24-hour basis. It's just nonstop. Jeff Crowder is our road superintendent. We recently had Randy Peoples become his assistant road superintendent. And again, this being very responsive to the needs of the road department and all those fellows. The department has two sources of funding, the general fund as well as the Hassan sales tax. These two funds require two different budgets. The bottom line on the general fund is about up about 10.5%, about $10 million budget. Specifically, inflation and increased costs of fuel, materials for the road has driven largely that up. On the initial 200 road budget, and then we'll talk about the Hassan sales, which will be under. But on the road department, they're up about 10.5% over last year. And again, all the things that you've been hearing through all the other presentations, fuel, parts, labors, materials, everything has been an increase. And for 10%, 10.5%, I'll take it. On a half-cent, dedicated half-cent road tax, that one is, again, down. It'll be about flat. We got about a 33% reduction in that budget if the capital request that they're asking for is not approved. If it is approved, then it'll still be in flat because we can only spend what that comes in for that particular one. So right now, that's last year, I think it was about 1.8. This year is about 1.2 million in that anticipated income for that particular fund.
JP Esri?
Thank you. A couple of questions. On the professional services, I'm sorry, engineering and architecture, it looks like, I'm just wondering if 50,000 is enough. And I hate to even ask those questions if it's enough, but based on the prior data, it looks like they may be a little shy on that.
And so I asked that question specifically, and I don't remember the project off the top of my head that we had anticipated this year that we'd work on. But given that we are not having a similar project that would require that type of architectural and engineering services, they felt like there's not a need for that amount, that the 50,000 is more based on what their projects are looking like in 2023. You know, for the past, I'd say the past 4 years or so, we were very aggressive on getting some doing new road projects, new bridge projects, and in doing so, because we were aggressive on those projects, we kind of slacked off and didn't have as much time and resources to put in on just regular maintenance. And so this year in 2022 and again in 2023, the big goal, the big plan is really to do a lot of repairs and road maintenance. And so we're not looking at any real big projects, and so we won't have that need because we're really going to try to get our roads back up to where they need to be so that we can then switch gears again and move forward to some of the bigger projects to take on some of the things that need to be done.
Some of the increased technology is going to help on that. We're using some technology on our equipment that does real-time data. Normally when we look at our roads and bridges, we have a drone go out, they do a snapshot in time. This is what the roads look like in the county, and then we start trying to make best laid plans. Over the next 5 years, we should be doing this road, that road, et cetera. But that was taken at that snapshot when the drone went and did all the road review. This equipment that we are now having on our equipment, it gives us real-time data. So while we may think that next year we're going to be working on this particular road, we may have to push it off because the subdivision is closed, there's people moving out, or more people moved in, now the subdivision become 2, and so we may update that because we're getting real-time data to see the type of traffic that's on those roads and the wear and tear on those roads and all. And again, that's what I was saying, that you got some cities now looking and saying, what are they doing? And that's pretty interesting. In fact, the state is now looking at using some of that same type of technology, that now we can look at collectively at some of the roads and bridges and move and work. You look at buys that can maybe be done in a joint fashion as opposed to piecemeal, et cetera. So anyway, that is some of that on the question on the engineer. The other piece is that we were looking, and I still think that's something to consider, is having a road engineer on staff, that we would actually hire someone who can continue to look at our projects and things that we're working on, work with the technology side if they have that wherewithal as well. But again, it's something that, again, I won't see, but one of the things I wanted to have in my back of the mind, we should have an engineer the size of this county who's helping us work through our projects, et cetera, so.
I have one more question, and that is, I noticed that asphalt has come from at least 2, maybe 3 different budgets. And I would assume that that's probably the most we can take out, a half-cent sale tax or the other ones. Is that kind of how that works?
One more time.
That the for example, asphalt, you've got it in your regular budget,
Oh, right.
and then you also have it in your half-cent sales tax budget, and then you have the additional, I mean, like I'm saying, it's listed in multiple places, and I would assume that's what each budget will carry for that.
That's
Is
correct.
that,
That's correct.
am I correct? Thank you.
That's correct.
Yep.
All right. And then the 0800 will go to our veteran services. 0800, page 214. That department is led by Officer Ben Dykes, who is, again, has a tremendous team over there, and they've worked extremely hard in providing and extending outreach to our veterans and their family. So much so that, again, I think we'll see that in the request for additional support and help, but there's an increase in that budget of about $16,000. Again, largely it's going to be in the part-time help that has driven that. Having someone there at the office, managing the phone, helping get folks in, but the service officers are the ones that can actually do that work there, get the training, get the certification, get into the system, see what the Fed and the state is saying about this individual and their family, to bring that in. Again, with the size of our county, we're probably past due in having some additional support in that area.
And I will say that I don't know about your books, but when I looked at this, we noticed a typo in the workers' compensation line, or line item 1010. It says my book has $20,132, and that is not correct. It should be $113. I don't know if yours has the corrected amount or the typo.
Is it corrected as a typo?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, just a note on, that's why the numbers that the judge read were a little bit different than what you're
So then
seeing.
your overall should be about $16,000.
Versus what our overall right now
36.
shows 36, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've also got a request, so if you've ever been to our Veteran Service Office, you've probably only been up on the main floor. There is a basement on that building that is empty right now. It needs some renovation. One thing that our veteran office does is we allow veteran groups to utilize our office space. And it's great for them because there's really nowhere else in Washington County for these entities to go without having to pay to have a meeting or reserve a room. And so we give them space when they need it at our office. The only problem is sometimes our veterans office has an event going on or needs to utilize their upstairs space. And so we've looked at this for years. We've never done it. And so we're kind of to the point of saying, okay, now we're going to, toss it up to the quorum court to see if you're interested. We'd like to finish out that basement area. It'll allow us to move all of these groups down, and they can keep their stuff down there. They can hold their meetings down there. Given the age of the building, it's not ADA compliant. It wouldn't have to be, because when the building was built, I specifically addressed that issue with Officer Dykes, and he has addressed that issue with the groups. None of the groups at this point utilize that space have the need for someone in a wheelchair to get down to that area. Should they, We've talked about, there's still the upstairs part that is ADA compliant that they could utilize. But this would give them just a big space to use and just add some more, just another service for the county to provide for our veterans.
And with that, I think Brian can't speak enough about the collaboration and the usage, the utilization of our Veteran Service Office. Very similar to what the sheriff has done and prior sheriffs have worked on over years. It doesn't just happen. Having a law enforcement community inside the county as well as the cities that really come together. We see that when we'll do a monthly breakfast and see the number of law enforcement from around the state come together. Same thing with our fire departments. They're very tight and very cohesive. Same thing with our emergency services group. Our veterans community in this Northwest region has really, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, have really started really gelling and coming together on a number of different projects, whether it's burying an unknown family member, a soldier who passed and doesn't have family, or celebrating someone, a veteran who hits 100th centennial. It just brings everybody in that veteran community together. The state always looks at us in Washington County and Northwest Arkansas for the work that we're doing and supporting and working with our veterans. And so having some capacity to continue to work and foster those relations is what I think a lot of this will be a benefit, having something like that. All right, with that, we'll go to Quorum Court. And that's another one that looks like it's a flat budget, about $110 savings over last year. So that budget's down by about $110. And so again, that budget comes in as flat as well. Still left some of the travel training. Obviously, you're going to probably have some new JPs in, and there'll be some things down in Little Rock. I imagine that they would want to pick up and do some training in. So, but anyway, overall bottom line for the Quorum Court budget, it will be about $110 under last year's budget. Election Commission, let me see, what number is that one?
Page 241.
Election Commission, 241. Again, got the commission, 3 of those guys, and they've submitted a budget of about $593,000 under, and that's because we're going into a non-election year. But there will be some requests for some additional in their 1,000 lines for some pay in their salary, poll workers, as well as, what was the other piece? Was it poll workers?
Poll workers.
Yeah, the poll workers.
Increase in
But by and large, it's down, and it cycles. So when it is a presidential year, clearly they'll be coming in and asking for more. There's also a potential request that may be made this year for some additional, when people go in, you know, you sign the tablets and all. They're down some tablets, and they just want to make sure they have enough going into this election in November. And so anyway, that would be it has nothing to do with the budget, but it may be a request being made by the Election Commission to come in and make that request known. They'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Other, let's see, where are they? Other judges' budgets, yeah. I think they're all going to be relatively flat.
So the first one that you have in front of you is the ambulance service, and right now it shows the same request from 2023. That's going to change. There was a meeting held with the board a couple of weeks ago, and they are looking at proposing an increase because they're kind of gotten, Central EMS has gotten to the point that the money that the county and the cities pay in is not nearly adequate for them to continue to staff the way they need to staff. And so I don't know what that is yet because their board has to vote on it, but once they do, I'll make sure that we supplement with you all what that request is.
That's ambulance services. That budget number was 301. We talked about the ARPA.
The ARPA budget's another new budget.
Another one, yeah.
And it comes straight out of the ARPA fund.
86,000 is the requested dollar amount. We have about, it's a little more than 55,000 for the, 73,000, so about $10,000 up from the 73,000 for for Ms. Brandy, who's our opera administrator, put in some dollars for travel, doing some training, et cetera, just to get our arms around more of that ARPA, everything ARPA. She put some additional justification letters for maybe some software as well. The health department running at same as last year, 17,169, again flat. Crisis stabilization unit will just be a reimbursed against a pass-through account, so for the county, and so UAMS will turn in their receipts. The county will turn that into the state will reimburse, and then the county will give that back to UAMS. And really excited about having those guys reopen. And then the courts, looks like 409 District Court in Fayetteville is flat. About a $2,000 increase in Springdale's court. Prairie Grove has about a $2,000 increase in their court. And then the district court in West Fork is about $1,300 over last year. Elkins Court is about $2,000 over last year. And the district judge is flat from last year.
Let's take a pause real quick. I think JP Wilson's up. JP Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the CSU fund, I guess I'm not clear on how all of that works. In other words, we've been asked for some more janitorial staff, right, and related to the CSU, and yet these other things we're saying we're going to be reimbursed for. So how does that all play together?
You gentlemen
The
want
CSU, so our agreement with the state, or kind of our agreement with our partners that helped us with the CSU, was that the money we get from the CSU, other than the initial startup, some of the initial startup costs that we put in and we were reimbursed for, the upkeep of that building is what we volunteered to take care of ourselves. And so that's about the only cost we have, other than the electricity and water that's there at that building. And we provide the janitorial services for that building. And so the money that the state reimburses, we are just a pass-through. It really just goes directly to UAMS now.
Oh.
And so there will be no more reimbursements for us.
So we just expressly carved out the janitorial as our own expense.
Regular maintenance.
Because as you can imagine, the state doesn't adequately pay for what it costs. And
Right.
so, everybody has some skin in the game on this, and that was kind of our skin in the game.
That reimbursement is for actual services rendered to those who are going into the CSU.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Extension office looks to be again flat from last year. That's 801. And I think that is, the HIV clinic is again flat from last year. In fact, they may have gave us $39 this year in reduction. The law library is up about $3,784 over last year. Again, 2.7% up over last year. And then we already discussed the election commission. What we have.
overall questions for Judge Wood or Chief of Staff Lester?
I'm gonna ask Brian, we talked about this afternoon, and just to give some perspective about the various budgets. Again, the county judge, we have about 16, 18 budgets, and we just went through all of those. But if we just looked at the road department, which again is dedicated funds, and pull that aside,
Right.
What do you look like?
So if we took the road department out of the mix, because the road fund is a dedicated fund that can't be crossed over to used in the general, right? So we don't take money out of necessarily our general. There's dedicated money into the road, plus the sales tax that goes in, all that's dedicated and can't be touched. And so it's kind of a self-sufficient fund. That's all it can be used for, is for those purposes. If we remove the road department, I looked at all of our 2,000 line item numbers and our 3,000 line item numbers. For our 2,000 line item numbers for all of the other budgets, as opposed to, in comparison with last year, those for all the other departments, except the new department like the CSU, it was an increase of $8,188, and that includes an increase in fuel of $25,500. And so fuel is one of those things that we don't have an option on and has gone up, and that's kind of largely what has hit us most with our budget is our fuel line item. Without the fuel increase, we would have a decrease of $17,312, or 2.3% over 2022. In our 3,000 line items, the big things that hit us in those, absent the road department, we have the tower lease at $126,000. We have increase in utility costs of $67,000, and then we have that increase in the insurance of $186,000, and so that leaves us that's $379,000, which are what we would call mandatory things that we don't really have an option on. We have to fund those things, which leaves us the discretionary things that we could possibly change. With those three big ones out of the way, we're looking at an increase of $194,768, which is about a 9.2% increase over 2022. And so just in doing those numbers, because I know it looks like a lot, but the general fund being separate from the road fund is kind of a better comparison to look at kind of where we are, what that increase looks like. I mean, we all know, with your own budgets at home, food's costing a lot more, gas costs a lot more. I mean, our budgets have changed, and so do they here. And so just thought that would kind of give a little bit more, shed a little more light on what we're looking at here.
Any other questions?
I think we're good. Judge Wood, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank both you gentlemen for preparing and coming and seeing us, but also thank you for your service over these past 6 years. And I know, speaking from myself, you've been a great leader, and for the county, I appreciate all that you've done. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for the work you guys are doing on the budget piece. This has been good.
To wrap up this evening, we have a final item as our public comment period. We have a 12-minute public comment period limited to 3 minutes per person. Public comments.
Good evening, Josh Moody, Fayetteville. This has been a learning experience for me. I also would like to thank Judge Wood for his time here and congratulate him on his last budget submission. Looking at all these departments, I'd like to say that I've heard nothing but good things about the Department of Emergency Management. They do amazing things, and the Washington County Veteran Services Office, I've had the pleasure of meeting them a few times lately, and it's a staff full of veterans, for veterans, advocating for veterans, making sure they get the information they need. So I just want to praise those departments specifically because, like I said, I've heard nothing but good from the community as well about those. Some of the other departments we kind of breezed through a little bit, and I couldn't scroll fast enough on my phone to look at all the numbers and see everything. I noticed how the chief of staff allocation was the same for 22 as it is for 23. I know that role's been covered, or been interimly covered for a few years now, and I was just trying to figure out why that was allocated last year. I understand why it'd be allocated for next year, but why it was allocated. Basically, I'm trying to figure out whether or not it was spent on any salary positions. It said it was vacant, but at the same time, it was allocated for 2022. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm also curious about the ARPA administrator. I'm glad that she's on board. I'm sure she's wonderful and does good things. What she's doing versus what we're going to pay up to $30,000 for the NWA economic development people to do. I'm trying to understand what the roles are and why we're spending basically, potentially $115,000 total that will come out of ARPA to distribute funds. So I'm not really asking questions. I'm just trying to voice some brief confusions because I haven't had the chance to look over this as much as you guys. But so I just wanted to make a record of it. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Public comments? Seeing none, this meeting is